Welcome to Gold Digging, episode 7. It's my weekly show where I try to unearth some golden nuggets from LinkedIn's leading marketing experts. It's going to be short form, under 15 minutes. It should be topical, challenging. I'm hopefully going to ask a couple of tough questions. I'm literally over the moon today. I've got the Pied Piper of marketing. I call him that. He hasn't done that.
I demanded it.
Joe is co-founder of the Marketing Meetup. It's a safe and kind space where marketers can connect meaningfully, learn together, and grow in confidence with both in-person events and digital events all across the world. Not just that, it's obviously flying high because it's had guests such as Mark Ritson, Rory Sutherland, a guest I had on last week, Gareth Turner's joined. So the community is really awesome, and I recommend that you go find out more about it. But for now, Joe, what has got your goat?
I love it. What a good introduction and straight into it. So you and I were spitballing ideas before we came on today, and the thing that sort of seemed to resonate was this idea that community is not the same as your customers. You know, this word community is a beautiful word. It's stunning. You know, an essence of humanity is people coming together and having a good time, learning from one another, making each other stronger than they would be alone, communicating with one another, not being a broadcast. But as marketers, we've done the thing that we always tend to do, which is we're taking this beautiful word, this concept that is amazing, and then we've decided to put a spin on it, which is not good. And that is this idea that your customer base is a quote unquote community. And that doesn't mean to say that your customer base can't be a community, but to take that word and just apply it willy-nilly is not appropriate, and actually diminishes the really powerful effects that community can have for you and your business.
And I'll be honest, I've been in this industry for 24 years, and I've been to umpteen client meetings. I've had thousands of briefs come through my door, and not a single marketer has used the word community. It's consumers, customer base, demographics, audience, and it's always transactional. It's always, what can I get? How can I get them to buy more? And actually, just the notion of it's a community of people is quite powerful, right?
Oh, of course. You know, I mean, a community is a powerful concept, you know, and it's got profound impacts for business, you know. So a great community would help build your awareness. It could reduce your support costs because the community are helping one another. The main benefit that I speak about really is actually the main currency of community is opportunity, which means to say that when folks come in to a community, then they have the opportunity, as we do as human beings, to create something which didn't exist before, whether that's a conversation that didn't happen, or a speaking opportunity, or indeed a business opportunity. Every one of these things are valuable things. But to your point about sort of going in and sort of experiencing these briefs, I think it's an interesting point you make, actually, because, you know, in my world, perhaps it's one of these things, you know, where you learn a word in French and then you kind of see it everywhere from that point onwards. You know, that's my experience of community. You know, you'll go online and someone's got a mailing list and it says, join our community and get 15% off. And it's like, no, come on, that's a mailing list. You know, it's great. You know, you can have a great mailing list, but it's not a community.
Isn't that that is just the same? Isn't that the same as when I talk to marketers about communities? They always go, yeah, we've got 100,000 on Facebook, we've got 50,000 on Instagram, TikTok's growing fast, but that's not community, right?
No, that's a followership. You know, that's people who follow you, and that's something profoundly different. You know, and it's different because in most of those instances, that's a broadcast. You know, folks are going out to someone, say for example, from your LinkedIn company page, and you put an update out. You know, the Marketing Meetup's got 40,000 people following us on our LinkedIn page, and I don't say, you know, those are our community. I'd say those are people who are interested potentially in the Marketing Meetup. But really, where the community comes into action is things like our events, where folks come together and they're fulfilling these roles, which is supporting one another, learning, listening, taking place, you know, and having genuine conversations that have a basis, of course, in business, but also, you know, in the humanity of one another. So yeah, social following, it's not a community. A community is this sort of human experience where people are coming with the best foot forward to share an experience.
And talk about that, because obviously you're not actively selling in some respects, and talking about LinkedIn, for example, everyone talks about community, but you've managed to get quite a large community quite quickly on LinkedIn, and you've not literally followed all the gurus or the algorithms and said we're going to do this. I see it in my feed all the time, but you have actually kind of defined, you've got a community on LinkedIn, you've got a community of people that travel for hours on a train to come to your events. And what could brands kind of learn from that? Because I'm seeing brands, to your point, they broadcast, it's all about marketing plans, and you feel a bit more organic and authentic than that.
I think, hopefully, I treat LinkedIn as my public diary. It's a place where I share genuine thoughts and feelings, and the community element that comes off the back of that would be in the comments, for example. So that would be a community in action, because actually if I step out and don't interact with a comment but someone else does, I'd say there's an argument right there for that being a community in action. Folks to travel to our events because they know that they're going to get a sense of that too. That they're going to walk in a room and they're going to feel like they're part of something, that they're co-creating an experience rather than they're having the experience thrown at them. That's the difference. And so, yeah, I think it's one of these things where there are elements of community in all these things. I wouldn't call the 50,000 people who follow me on LinkedIn a community. That's a followership, but I'd say that there's community elements in action. But the reason why we've chosen to double down on events really is because if we identify ourselves, the marketing meetup, as a community, then I really think there's quite a pure example of community in action in these in-person experiences. I think it's also replicable to a certain extent in the online world. So something we see quite regularly is in the chat feature of our Zoom sessions. People are like organizing walks with one another, or they're sort of saying, oh yeah, I felt that experience too, either in resonating with one another or the speaker or whatever, and then there's a conversation. And so I think community can happen online, and I think it really does happen in person. The last thing to say, because you said the word community is powerful, then you need to look at things like Harley Davidson or HubSpot. So Harley Davidson, you got people walking around with like tattoos of their logo on their arms. They resonate with something. That's like pure like psychology. That's in group, out group stuff. They're taking like the symbols of this brand and they're putting it on their skin forever.
It's the cult brand. Insane. I read a great book on cult brands, and actually, you raise a really good point on that, because if I was a service provider, which my agency is, I can kind of instantly understand, build a community, people to people, that's interaction. But something I'm trying to get my head into, which doesn't seem to be manifesting well enough, is brands in store, for example, because they're trying to create a transaction, they don't ever ideate off the idea of community. So they might shrink their pack, they might commoditize, or they might run a price promotion. But I keep saying to them, you've got a value add, particularly at own label, when people have got to part with money, you've got to give them something additional. And it feels to me like just the notion of community, if you was to go into a room and workshop the idea of how can our brand build a community, even within a store, that feels like it's quite a white space opportunity, right?
It certainly can be, and the word that comes to mind is experience. Experience, as in an experience that people can share together and interact with one another on. So, for example, I think you look at the Gymshark store that's just opened on Regent Street. Now, there's been a reasonable criticism of it, of the finances and all that sort of stuff. But actually, if you look at what they've tried to do, they've tried to create a space which is experiential as much as it is about, sort of pure transaction. So they've got weights in there, they've got like, I haven't been, but you sort of see the pictures and like it's there for the experience, and folks will be able to interact around all of those things. And this can be the same for, some washing up liquid. You could have a day, where people get together and share their tips for house cleaning or something like that. Invite Mrs. Hinch down to come and speak to the event, and off you go. You've got a community of folks who are coming together to interact about that central point, but then they start creating something special. There's a company called Electric House who do a really great job of this, where they curate online communities around different topics. So they've got On the Tools, which is a tradie sort of community, which sells stuff off the back of it. And that's community first. I think that's probably the way that I would think about this in the corporate context is that if I was going to try and build a community, I'd almost ring fence it. I'd sort of say, we have to be aware, we have to buy into the theory that this is going to be a top level awareness thing. It's also going to be a retention thing. But these are activities which are going to help sort of create this sort of brand that we all believe in. And so for that reason, that is why we're going to invest in community, but it has to be done in a quote unquote pure way. And that pure way is an experience that's shared, but it's also one that's not about you. So everyone knows that feeling of walking into a room and being sold at about sort of feeling like you're a budget or a job title. So actually every one of these things, if it was personal, for example, it's not about personal. It's about everyone in the room sharing those experiences of the washing up liquid or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And if you
that's the opportunity.
And if you were to try and build a community, how do you go about it? Is it open for all, or do you have to double down on going, we've got a passion or we've got a similar viewpoint, or how do you build a really powerful community? Does it have to have a certain nucleus to it?
I think so. So I think there's a couple of ways you can identify a problem, as we do as marketers. So I don't know why I'm picking on washing up liquid today, but there's is this an main thing? There's a common pain point that people know and experience, and therefore can gather around. The other way to do this is to have a story. So for the marketing meetup, our story is that I'm an introvert who's terrified of walking into networking rooms. And so I decided to start an event which felt friendly and kind, and off we went, type of thing. And that's a story that we tell and reinforce every time. But I don't think the thought process, therefore, isn't let's start a community. The thought process is, what's this thing that is genuinely on a human level impacting people, and what can we do about it to help them? And that last sentence is a really, really important part, because it's not what can we do to get more profit from them or whatever. It's what can we do to help them, on the acknowledgement that it goes full circle. There's greater brand resonance. There's more people aware, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, like I say, it's got to be under 15 minutes. And when I do these chats, sometimes they have obvious start, middle, and ends. But I think the topic we're talking about is a bit more ethereal, where when people watch this back, they probably need to go away and actually go, this is scratching the surface, but it's quite a big topic. What do I think about it? How do I feel about it? How do I actually start to think there's something powerful in here? But I think it's going to take a lot for marketers to realize what that powerful notion is. So I think you've been an awesome guest in just like literally opening up this wonderful topic of not customer base, not following, but genuinely a community, and a powerful community at that, which is, well, like I said earlier, a massively untapped opportunity. And not, as Isabel said, not through the idea of selfish marketing, how can I sell more, but actually, how can we be valued more, and how can we actually take pride in our work and actually feel like we're succeeding in doing something that is meaningful and lasting. So big thank you for coming on, Joe. It's one of my favorite episodes. Thank you so much. Really powerful.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.